Hello. In this video, let us discuss about the telecom service provider industry in India. Visually, we are going to discuss about the Tata Docomos, the Reliances, and the Bharti Airtels and so on. We are going to briefly discuss about the defining characteristics of this industry, the ways in which a mobile service provider would earn his money, and the costs that he incurs to earn that money, and the ways in which his profit margins are affected by various criteria, which I would explain you in the later half of this video. Let us look at the industry characteristics. The mobile service providing industry is a very high fixed cost industry. The reason, if a service provider wants to provide service to a customer, he needs to have his tower built in the region where this customer is. So, if a company wants a pan-Indian presence, it needs to have around 50,000 towers spread out all over India. And a single tower costs at least 20 lakh rupees. And so you can see 50,000 towers into 20 lakhs. That's the initial investment you have to make before you earn money. Low variable cost. And assuming you have acquired this new customer, most of the costs that you have incurred would be selling and admin expenses, the advertising, the branding work, and of course the paperwork with this customer and so on. And the operational cost of having a new customer is pretty less. The reason is something like this. If in a region your tower is serving 100 people, so in order to serve 100 people, you have incurred the fixed cost of building that tower, and then the variable cost, that is the power and fuel cost of providing service to these 100 people. So most of the operational variable cost comes from the power and fuel cost. Let's take this scenario. In your region, there are 100 people, and one more customer was acquired by your marketing team. So, your earlier average cost, which is fixed cost plus 100 people into variable cost per person, would be higher than your later average cost, which is fixed cost plus 100 people into variable cost divided by 101, which shows that most of the variable cost that you incur is from selling and admin expense and not from the operational expenses of providing service to this 101st customer. Which brings me to economies of scale. The more number of customers you have in a certain region, the more number of customers served by your tower, the lesser is your average cost per customer. Another very important characteristic of this industry is high competition. If you see, there are around 11 service providers in India which are operating in different circles. For example, Bharti Airtel operates in 23 different circles, BSNL operates in 21 circles, Vodafone in 17, Reliance in 23, Tata Teleservices in 19, Idea 12, and so on. Which means there is a very high competition in different states of India. And then first player dominates. Another important aspect of this industry, The reason why the first player dominates is the switching cost. Let us take this hypothetical example. There is a service provider X and he is the only service provider in a particular region. That is, everyone who has a mobile gets his service from service provider X. Now, another new player comes in named service provider Y. Let us assume a customer of service provider X now shifts to service provider Y. Now, let us look at the situation of this customer. Earlier, most of his friends, the customer's friends, knew his service provider X mobile number. Now, he needs to notify to other people that he has changed his mobile number and they need to note his new mobile number, which is a major switching cost to most of the subscribers, and so they stick to their former one until and unless the utility of service provider Y far outweighs this switching cost. Let us look at the ways in which these service providers earn their revenue. Of course, a typical call, the customer pays for making a call, and the various value-added services that they provide, the cricket scores, the songs, ringtones, and so on, and of course the SMS. This is another interesting aspect, tower sharing. In the sense, if a new player enters the market, enters a region, in this current scenario especially, the new player, that is the new entrant, would find it more profitable to pay rent to an incumbent for using his tower than building up his own towers. Thus, tower sharing is a major revenue for Reliance and Bharti Airtels and so on. And there is an interesting aspect to their revenues which comes under miscellaneous category. For example, the Kaun Banega Crorepati show. Since Idea is sponsoring it, and they have a very interesting revenue model with this. If you want to get into the KBC show, you have to call up certain number where a computer would ask you questions and you were supposed to answer those questions. Generally, the questions that are asked in such quizzes are, let's say, pretty average type questions. Quite a few people can answer those questions. The reason why such questions are asked is to make people believe that, maybe we can call up and maybe we can earn some money quickly. And so, a lot of people would call up these shows. And you indeed need to note that the call rates for these shows are pretty high when compared to your normal calling rates. For KBC, I think it's around 3 to 4 rupees per minute. There is another game show named Gold Freeze, which makes you wait till you get a chance to answer questions. And this waiting time is so long and the tariff rate is so high, it is around 10 rupees per minute, that within 15 minutes, the service provider would earn around 150 rupees, which is far higher than the average revenue per user per month. This is something you need to know with regard to classification of states. States are classified into a metro, Circle A, Circle B, Circle C. Metros, of course, would constitute the 4 metros, Circle A would be some of these states like Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, etc., which have higher potential of revenue. And then Circle B would constitute states like Punjab, Haryana, etc. And Circle C would constitute states like the Seven Sisters, which are on the eastern side of India. Let us look at the various costs that these service providers would incur. Of course, they incur some selling and admin expenses, the employee costs, building up those network infrastructure, the towers, and maintaining those network infrastructure, that is the power and fuel costs. Let us look at how the profit margin is affected by various factors. Of course, margin is affected by revenue and costs. Let us look at revenue first. Revenue would be affected by the number of subscribers. Higher the number of subscribers, higher should be your revenue. And of course, the average revenue per user. So higher the average revenue per user, higher should be your revenue. And I've divided number of subscribers into urban subscribers and rural subscribers. The reason is there is quite a distinction between an urban subscriber and a rural subscriber. In the sense, quite a lot of urban people have their mobiles, whereas not many people in rural areas have their mobile. And also, quite a lot of urban subscribers spend more than the rural subscribers. I'll tell you a bit more clearly of why I had to differentiate like this in my later video. Well, urban subscribers is dependent on urban teledensity. A teledensity is nothing but the number of people who own a mobile out of a population of 100 people. And the urban teledensity in India is around 85%. And I wanted to estimate urban teledensity in the future. So I've said urban teledensity would depend on the per capita income of urban population, and of course higher the urban population, it should affect the urban teledensity, and higher the competition, higher should be the teledensity. And I've taken tertiary state domestic product instead of gross domestic product. The reason is typically in an urban area, most of the revenue comes from the services sector. And so I've taken tertiary SDP. Whereas when it comes to rural subscribers, everything remains the same except I have taken primary state domestic product because most of the income comes from agriculture. Coming to the cost part, there is of course the selling and admin expenses, and then the power and fuel cost of these towers, employee costs and other manufacturing expenses, the repairs of these towers and so on. These power and fuel costs are again affected by the number of towers installed. Higher the number of towers, higher is the power and fuel cost. And of course, higher the number of towers installed, higher should be the penetration. And I have considered only rural penetration because the urban penetration has almost saturated at this stage. It has reached 85% and now it would very slowly progress towards 100. And I'm very sure that not many service providers are keen on the normal urban market, the regular voice calling feature of the urban market. Alright, we'll continue about some of the key issues in the next video. Thank you.